wondering how I got into this mix. Mind playing tricks and I'm fiending for a fix.
Wake to rise to new heights, family. My name is Derrick Broze. You are listening to the Conscious Resistance Weekend News Wrap-Up. Today is Saturday, January 24th, 2015. And if you cannot tell, I'm just getting over a cold. I spent quite a bit of time running in the rain this week in Dallas as I was attending the sentencing hearing for Barrett Brown, journalist Barrett Brown, which we will get into in just a moment. And I've been dealing with a cold the past couple days, but for one, that trial was too important, that hearing was too important to miss, regardless of whether or not I was sneezing and coughing the entire time. And bringing you the news, the top news of the week, is important to me as well. Sometimes I ask myself, why do I do these things? Why do I record these podcasts? Is anybody listening? Occasionally I look at them like, okay, well, 10 people listen, that's cool. Oh, a couple of people saw the video, that's cool. But overall, I feel and I believe in every person on an individual level doing what they can to spread awareness, to spread compassion, to help humanity move forward. And I believe this is part of that, part of what I can do outside of being involved in the community, writing articles, being a journalist, trying to be a conscious, loving, compassionate, aware human being. So I find value in this, and I hope you do as well. If you find value in the work that I do and the work of the team on theconsciousresistance.com, please consider investing in our work sometime. You can go to theconsciousresistance.com. There's an About tab. If you scroll over that, you'll see a drop-down menu where it says Invest. You can go to the Invest page, and you can send us Bitcoin if you're into that, which we are. You can become a monthly supporter of me directly on Patreon, and if you do that, what that allows you to do is, in addition to all the free content that I personally put out and the free content that the team at The Conscious Resistance puts out, you will get access to exclusive podcasts that I record on the weekend, in addition to this free news wrap-up. So that will include, this week I'm going to do a detailed rundown of this week's events at the Barrett Brown sentencing hearing for those who are Patreon subscribers. Last week I did the same thing for Ross Ulbricht in the Silk Road trial as I was in New York. And in the past there's been conversations about spirituality, marginal utility. This podcast for the Patreon subscribers, supporters, will focus more on philosophical, spiritual concepts, and sometimes if I'm out there covering events, then I'll give you a more detailed rundown. Of course, you can also find information on Ross Ulbricht and Barrett Brown available for free that I have written on Ben Swan and others. So I'm not trying to make you pay for the information itself, but if you support me and you want to go a little further, then I'll give you more detailed details that I personally, when I look at the mainstream and even the independent media for Barrett Brown and for Ross Ulbricht, I'm not trying to toot my own horn here because I'm not really that great at that. I'm trying to, work on being confident. But I will say this. I think I write more detailed than most of these people do. Maybe too detailed. Maybe that's a problem. I don't know. I don't know how you guys are, but I'm sort of a nerd for the details. I love waiting for, government documents to get released and reading transcripts. And so when I'm in the court, I'm taking detailed notes. I'm really trying to recount every detail because it may seem minor at one point, but looking back later, looking through my notes, I'm like, oh, wow, I almost forgot about that. I'm glad I wrote that down. And it gives a more clear picture. And again, the devil is in the details, some people say. And I will say that is definitely accurate when you're in the courtroom in these federal courthouses where most of us never have time or access to go there to hear about these cases. We just read about them online, and so much information is kept from the people that might help you have a more full opinion of the topic, including Barrett Brown and Ross Ulbricht. So that's what I do for Patreon subscribers. You can also support us at PayPal, and that's my PayPal email, dbros@thehoustonfreethinkers.com, and then there's a change tip little button there that you can support through. If you like an article, you can tip exactly what you want. And I do want to make it clear, all of that and all those accounts go directly to me, to Derrick Broze. And then I use them to put back into the Conscious Resistance Network. The Conscious Resistance Network is a team of people that write and do vlogs and videos and interviews and reports at theconsciousresistance.com. And up to this point, nobody is paid. It's just awesome people who believe in the same message that I do and want to help each other grow. and I'm thankful for them. But at some point in the near future, I hope that this operation grows, that this message grows. Maybe the book can help that and help push these ideas to a larger audience and grow the website. And then we could get to a point where this money, whatever funds and donations that are coming through, which I'm very thankful to everyone who does do that, can then go into expanding our website. We have Neil Rademacher. I gotta give a shout out here. Really, thank you to Neil. He's the one who built this website from the ground up, and I'd like to pay Neil, people like him, and pay some of these writers who are doing, I think, an awesome job putting ideas out there. So as my work grows, then I feel the Conscious Resistance will grow, and that's the idea, is that we can all grow together on this team. So thank you for that, and for everyone who is supportive of us. If you are not yet, please do follow us on Twitter at @TheConsciousRN, TheConsciousRN. My personal Twitter is DBrosLiveFree, and we're on Facebook, of course, The Conscious Resistance Network. You can find us on YouTube.com/ConsciousResistance, and the SoundCloud, where the audio versions of this podcast and other interviews and occasional positive affirmations can be found at soundcloud.com/TCRlive. So thank you for sitting through that long-winded introduction to what we're going to get into today. Seriously, though, I do appreciate everyone who is supportive of my work and team here. You guys are amazing. Oh, one thing, let me just get this awesome news out of the way. I tend to save the good news for the end of the show. Like if there's a positive story or positive angle I want to cover, it's like usually we just go through all this heavy shit, and by the end of the show we're like, whoa, why did you do that to me, man? But then I try to bring it back to the light and be like, but guess what? This is what's going on. So I'll start off with something positive first, and it will end with something positive as well. But I'm going to be an uncle, like probably maybe right now already, but any moment now, a new human being is being birthed into this horrible, beautiful, amazing place. My older brother, Michael, is having his third child, a little beautiful angel who will go by the name Lily Ann Broze, another beautiful Broze woman coming into the world. So I'm thankful for that. Just wanted to put that out there. I love being an uncle. This is going to be my fifth little niece and nephew. I have 2 nephews now and 3 nieces, and I don't ever plan on being a dad myself, so I love being an uncle. I get to be the crazy uncle who comes and plays with them and wears them out and then says, peace, see you later, enjoy them. But yeah, so awesome to new life, and that is why we must continue to raise awareness, to fight for a better world, to live a better world, to create a better world, because there are so many beautiful minds and hearts being born all around this world. I mean, every second there's just like a new baby being born, newborn, and some of them will have very short lives, and some of them will have very long lives, and some of them will impact the entire world, and others will only impact their corner of the world. But they are all valuable and they are all important, and that is why I do what I do, and that is why we do what we do. So that's the positive thing. This week on The Conscious Resistance, we had some new content come out from Danilo, Peaceful Anarchism. He put out part 2 of 2, Anarcho-Capitalism versus Direct Democracy, a debate between him and John Simmerman. Katie Chaos put out a new video called How to Help Ross Ulbricht and Family, discussing the Silk Road trial and exactly how to do that. Danilo also wrote another piece called I Know the Perfect Amount of Violence to Reach Utopia. Check that one out, it's really good. And Katie Chaos did another video, Jury Nullification, Extinguish Bad Laws. So if you don't know what jury nullification is, you should find out about it, because it's definitely one of the most powerful tools we could put to use if only more people knew about it. And our latest contributor to the website, Michael Freeman, aka Michael King, he's going to be doing a podcast that will appear on the website on a weekly basis. It's called Abolishing Authority, and he just put out his first episode, number 1, No Victim, No Crime, an interview with Derrick J. Freeman. So check that out, and look for more stuff coming this week. I think I'm going to go do a Man on the Street interview outside of the American Sniper movie, because that movie's just, I usually ignore these distractions, but that movie's just getting so much praise, and I decided to sit through it, and I watched it the other night, and I posted a review of it on Facebook. Maybe I'll save that and put that out on the website, along with this interview, because I think it's important to confront outright lies like this and to get people to think about these things. And also because there's a global action against torture coming up, and it's just like the war is back in people's minds, and it's time to confront this. You know, the mainstream media is writing, oh, America's finally ready for a war movie about Iraq. So it's time, if they think they're ready for a war movie, what they mean is like, it's time for us to propagandize the people. It's been long enough. Just in case there's any resistance left, let's go ahead and smash that down with a whole bunch of propaganda. And that's where you and I come in, and we take our time to communicate in a compassionate way and try to find some truth for those who may believe these lies. So let's get into the news. Of course, every week I'm going to cover what I think are the top stories that you should know, and this comes from articles that I've written for the antimedia.org, for benswan.com, and for the Liberty Beat. I write about 40 articles a week of varying length. So there's a lot of news. I cover everything from indigenous rights and stories, global issues, conspiracies, health stuff, the surveillance state, the police state, all that good stuff. So I keep my eyes and ears peeled and stuck on the news so you can keep up to date without having to do all the research that I do. The first thing is the Silk Road trial continued this week, and I wrote my recap of this for Ben Swan last week after doing an interview with RT, and that is available for you guys there. And the Liberty Beat as well, we have a writer out there in New York who has been attending the trial. But basically this week, the defense of Ross Ulbricht said that the prosecution and the judge, quote, eviscerated his defense. And what he means by that is the judge started off the week by not allowing the discussion on Mark Karpeles, the disgraced former CEO of MT Gox, the Bitcoin exchange, who is also being investigated by the federal government. Ross Ulbricht's defense had attempted to paint a picture that the FBI agent Jared Derrick was actually, and this is factual, was actually investigating Mark Karpeles and believed he might be Dread Pirate Roberts as opposed to Ross Ulbricht. So we were starting to get excited, like, oh God, this is something good. They're poking holes in this official story. Let's see where this goes. And Tuesday morning, the judge says none of that is going to be allowed. We have to strike that from the record. Let me go tell the jury that they're to take that away. They're not supposed to consider that whenever it comes time to making their decision. So that took a huge chunk out of their ability to argue what they were arguing, which is essentially Ross's team's been arguing that he did create the Silk Road. At some point it got too hectic. He wanted to back out. He did back out, and then people took over and started using the name Dread Pirate Roberts. And at some point, once they realized they were being tracked by the feds, they brought him back in under some sort of trick that we have yet to hear about, and left him to get caught red-handed. Now, it's not really looking good for that defense. I mean, honestly, because after the judge did that, they brought out the computer expert who had Ross's computer. Of course, they caught him in a San Francisco public library. He had the computer open, logged into the back end of the Silk Road website. I mean, that's pretty difficult to... He's logged in as the administrator, what was known as the mastermind page. And they caught him logged in there. Then, as we found out last week, they found handwritten notes in his house with identical phrases used to the same, the same phrases that Dread Pirate Roberts was using on the forum, discussing a new rating system. That was pretty incriminating. So this computer expert says, look, we also got logs of his. Apparently, Ross kept journals going back years describing all these various plans of what the Silk Road was about, where it was headed. He apparently wanted to turn Silk Road into a brand, like make it a bank, and really challenge the government. And I think this is another reason why they're thankful they took him out. It's not just because they believe he's a drug kingpin or something like that, but he was... This is the thing. This is how you can really understand that nation states are like gangs. They work in a way that monopolizes everything, every institution, their control, and legitimizes their control over everything. And anyone who dare compete against that whether legal or illegal, quote unquote, is then deemed a criminal by that same state. The masses are told this person's a criminal, and they're thrown in a cage. But this is the reality that we live in. Basically, those of you who support people like Ross Ulbricht and who think that the country is not going the direction it should, then we essentially are this new mind of people who don't like the current state, right? There's a lot of people who think that the state's power is legitimate, and they're supporters of it. But we're these evolutionaries, these revolutionaries who are trying to say, you know what, there could be a better way. Let's do something different. Let's challenge it. But instead of trying to vote our way and try to create that change in that way, the way the state tells us to, we are saying, fuck that. We're going to create our own solutions. And the state and anyone who challenges to write about these things, to talk about the crimes of the states, to go out and create solutions, and to do that in a big way, they are demonized and they are taken down and they're attacked. And that's what's happening to Ross Ulbricht. But it doesn't look good. They, as I said, they presented some pretty incriminating evidence that does show that, as far as we can see, Ross Ulbricht is Dread Pirate Roberts. And, it's going to continue. There's still more witnesses to come. And I should be returning, and sometime in the next week or two, the Liberty Beat's holding a Indiegogo campaign. They're trying to raise money to send me and John Bush out there. I believe that will happen. So stay tuned for that. I will be going back and keeping you updated on that topic. I also mentioned Barrett Brown and his sentencing hearing this week. As I said, I'm going to go deeper into this for the Patreon supporters, but I do want to talk about this for a moment. Barrett was sentenced to 63 months in federal prison. With his time served, this means he'll probably do about 30 months or so. So 2.5 years more on top of the 2 years he already did. He was also ordered to pay $890,000 in restitution fees to some of the companies that were hacked in 2011 by Jeremy Hammond. Now, for one, on that aspect, I didn't realize this till later, but this is ridiculous. Okay, Jeremy Hammond hacked Stratford and a number of other companies under the direction of Sabu, who was a well-known member of Anonymous, who was working as an FBI informant after he got caught. So this dude is supposedly a hacker, big badass, gets caught, turned into a rat, starts directing hacks under the direction of the FBI, and one of those hacks includes Jeremy Hammond. So the FBI directs an attack through one of their informants, then arrests the hacker for going through with the hack. Then Barrett Brown reports on the hack, and they arrest him and charge him with a bunch of other crimes, say that he was an accessory to the fact by offering to mediate and help redact some of the documents. And now he's ordered to pay nearly $900,000 to repay those institutions. So the private intelligence firms contract with the government. Their information gets hacked and exposed. Somebody writes about it and gets put in prison. And then he has to pay back. And it's the FBI the whole time who directed the damn attack. How does that make any sense? Judge Sam Lindsay also ruled that 50% of all gifts or awards will go to Stratford and Combined Security. So anytime he gets any money, it's going to be garnished. He can't have credit cards, checks, or bank accounts. He'll be on parole for at least 2 years, and he will only be allowed to use an approved computer, which will monitor all of his activity, of course. Some powerful things were said by Barrett Brown in this that I do want to point out. He discusses trying to take steps to avoid putting other journalists and other hackers in the crosshairs of the government. He realized this, so he didn't take a plea deal. Now, this is one of the interesting aspects, because throughout the sentencing hearing, they tried to disparage him as a criminal member of Anonymous and a former journalist or a pseudo-journalist. And this is what he said in his final statement before the judge regarding that. There you have it. Deny being a spokesperson for Anonymous hundreds of times, and you're still a spokesperson for Anonymous. Deny being a journalist once or twice, and you're not a journalist. What conclusion can one draw from this sort of reasoning other than that you are whatever the FBI finds it convenient for you to be at any given moment? This is not the rule of law. Your Honor, it is the rule of law enforcement, and it is very dangerous. Some powerful words. And his last thing that he wrote, which is just amazing here and really indicative of his attitude and the way he sees things. This is the statement that was released after he found out what his full sentence was. Good news. The U.S. government decided today that because I did such a good job investigating the cyber-industrial complex, they're now going to send me to investigate the prison-industrial complex. For the next 35 months, I'll be provided with free food, clothes, and housing as I seek to expose wrongdoing by the Bureau of Prison officials and staff, and otherwise report on news and culture in the world's greatest prison system. I want to thank the Department of Justice for having put so much time and energy into advocating on my behalf, rather than holding a grudge against me for the 2 years of work I put into bringing attention to a DOJ-linked campaign to harass and discredit journalists like Glenn Greenwald. The agency instead labored tirelessly to ensure that I received this very prestigious assignment. Wish me luck. Even in the face of their bullshit, he does not stand down, and he shines through as a powerful person, a courageous person who is now going to face 5 years of his life will have faced 5 years of his life in prison for reporting on something, for threatening a federal agent, as a mistake he admits that he shouldn't have said, and was really through a YouTube video, and taken into context and understanding what was going on in his life. I think a case could be made that should have been thrown out, and that was the charge that really hurt him the most. But him and his family requested that he be sent to the federal prison in Fort Worth so he could be near his home. We'll find that out soon, and we can begin keeping in touch with Barrett and letting him know what's going on in the world. And I'm sure he's got a lot of writing to do. Going to be some interesting information coming from him. He is definitely not done by any means. And again, I'll be going more in depth in that for Patreon supporters. So a couple of more stories here that I've got that I wrote, one for Anti-Media and one for Ben Swan. These are both really big. Apparently, in addition to stingrays, cell phone surveillance, automatic license plate readers attached to cars and throughout the cities, fusion centers, internet spying, gunshot detector audio recording devices. In addition to all those things and drones, we also have to worry now about law enforcement and the feds using something known as a Range R radar. And this is made by L3 Communications, which is also one of the companies that makes some of the police body cams. So a USA Today investigation showed that since at least 2012, the FBI, U.S. Marshals, and a number of other law enforcement agencies around the country have spent $180,000 on these radars, which use radio waves and can capture movements as subtle as breathing from more than 50 feet away. Human breathing. It says the Range R display shows whether it has detected movement on the other side of a wall, and if so, how far away it is. But it does not show a picture of what's happening inside. The Range R's maker, L3 Communications, estimates that it has sold about 200 devices to 50 law enforcement agencies at a cost of about $6,000 each. So these are Range R radar devices that can see through walls into your homes from more than 50 feet away. And they say that they're used whenever they have to do house raids, SWAT raids, to see if people are using weapons inside. But the problem is we see that the law enforcement around the country are becoming heavily militarized, and more they're doing SWAT raids for very simple calls and for people who are not dangerous and there's no report of violence or weapons. It says that some of the more advanced radars are also capable of displaying three-dimensional images of where people are located in a building. Others are made to be mounted on drones. And the tools themselves use radio waves. As I said, they can be catch breathing from more than 50 feet away. The ACLU said the idea that the government can send signals through the walls of your home to figure out what's inside is problematic. Technologies that allow police to look inside of a home are among the intrusive tools that police have. Now, this comes after the Supreme Court ruled in 2001 that officers cannot use technology to peek inside the home of an individual without first getting a warrant. I mean, this just... they never get warrants anymore. It's just funny to me how everything, they're like, oh, well, this requires a warrant. even if a Supreme Court decision in this country, which is supposed to mean something, I think, even when the Supreme Court says something that it specifically mentions thermal cameras and radar-based systems needing to require a warrant, and they still do it anyways. And the most recent case we see here in December, a federal appeals judge in Denver, he's the first one that brought the issue to light. The officers in that case, they used a radar to look into the home of a man who was wanted for a parole violation. And the judge said, quote, "The government's warrantless use of such a powerful tool to search inside homes poses grave Fourth Amendment questions." But what's ridiculous is even in that case, the judge still allowed the guy to be found guilty. She still allowed, the dude was on parole. He had violated in some way, and I don't think it was a violent way. I don't think he went and committed another crime. I think it was probably being in possession of a weapon because, of course, if you've gone to prison like millions of people around this country for ridiculous things and you become a felon, you can't own a weapon, such as myself. And they used this radar to look into his house and, went in there and raided him. And I think I think part of the case was that they found a weapon in his house, but they would have never known the weapon was in there had they not used this radar to look inside. And they did so without a warrant. So just imagine that when there's a cop parked out, for example, if you go to protests or if you attend rallies and things like that regularly, you probably witness police, police just showing up and hanging out, making sure everybody's safe, right? You'll see some cars or vans parked. It's safe to assume that in those cars and vans, they are using stingrays, cell site simulators, to gather all the information, the metadata from every phone in that area. It's very easy, and this is this is a fact. I mean, I can pretty much guarantee that if you see that happening on a regular basis, just cop cars parked and a guy sitting in it, that's what they're probably doing, is using stingray cell site simulators to gather activists and organize their information. We've seen this happen in Chicago and other cities, and it just makes sense that they're putting these things into action. So also imagine then, as we saw in New York with these X-ray vans, the NYPD had these X-ray vans that could look into people's homes. There are these devices now, handheld devices, that they can just kind of walk up to your house. They don't even have to be that close. And I'm sure as technology gets better, they'll be able to just do this from miles away. And they can see the heat signatures of all the living beings in there. Who's where they're sitting, where they're walking, who's fucking, whatever they're doing. And yeah, they can do that without having to get a warrant. This is 2015, United States of America. And all these tools, of course, have originated from Iraq and Afghanistan as part of the federal 1033 program to militarize the police around the nation. And as I said last week, the last time we mentioned the militarization of the police, I was told this by a police source to look out for all police officers and police departments to start moving towards the color black. They were slowly going to integrate through uniforms and through the tools and the vehicles, changing all the departments to look like one. He said, back in the day, you would have all these local police departments. They didn't all look the same. They had different logos, different colors. But now that's being done. That's being changed, and we're seeing this move towards uniformity. And he said this is so that at one point, once they have all that done, they will then announce a national police force, and all the cops everywhere will look the same, act the same, and be using the same military weapons. So, be alert. This next topic has to do with journalists, since we're talking about Barrett Brown and how his case deals with journalism and attack on journalists. We have more revelations coming from the Snowden files. Edward Snowden, of course, leaked documents to Glenn Greenwald and to the Guardian, but the Guardian, of course, ended up working with the government when the government requested they destroy certain files. They complied with them. Glenn Greenwald, of course, was unwilling to do that, and I believe he took some of the documents he had himself and went with The Intercept for his version of adversarial journalism. Of course, he has taken criticism as well for not releasing these documents wholesale and holding on to them. But The Guardian reported on on a new document, and what it outlines is how the GCHQ, the British Government Communications Headquarters, which is their NSA, actually classifies investigative journalists as a threat, and they do this in a similar category as terrorists and hackers. So there's a program which monitored emails to and from journalists working for media organizations both in the UK and the United States. In one single day, in less than 10 minutes, the GCHQ collected 70,000 emails, including emails of journalists from the BBC, Reuters, Guardian, New York Times, The Sun, NBC, and The Washington Post. And this was collected through the backbone of the internet, of course, the fiber optic cables that run all over the world that we learned more about through Edward Snowden. So one of the most disturbing parts here is the security assessment listing investigative journalists as a potential threat to security. And this document was shared among intelligence agencies all around Britain, all around, I think maybe even internationally, promoting the idea that the activities of journalists were as much of a threat as foreign intelligence, hackers, and criminals. They were specifically concerned with the activities of investigative journalists, such as myself, who they say specialize in defense-related exposés, either for profit or for what they deem to be of the public interest. I love the way they use that, like, oh, they think it's for the public interest. You're damn right it's in the public interest to expose you. So their assessment also lists journalists between terrorism and hackers in their threat rating. In some cases, they list terrorists as a lower priority than investigative journalists, and that's insane. Terrorism is seen as a moderate threat compared to the work and tactics of investigative journalists. And they also say that journalists and reporters may take a formal approach or an informal approach, possibly with off-duty personnel, in their attempts to gain official information in which they are not entitled. And that's interesting. They're calling out, they're like, watch out for their tactics. And this is just the latest in a long line of attacks on free press, both in the United States and abroad. Of course, in the United States, President Obama has been one of the least transparent presidents ever. And this is only a trend that's going to continue to get less and less transparent. And I imagine they're seeing similar things in the UK and other Western nations, because that's the direction that the world is headed if you don't start changing things. Starting with yourself. Change yourself. Change yourself and you will change the world. You know what I mean? Okay, the last crazy story, and then we got the positive thing, and then I'm out of here for this week. Again, I've got all the information and the info. If you're watching this on YouTube, look in the details below. If you're listening on SoundCloud, look to the details to the right. There will be links to all of the stories we covered. Read those stories, follow the links in those stories, go do your own research, learn more about these topics, talk to people, inform people, get active, get motivated, and then go spend some time outside, build a garden, get involved in your community, get to know your family, get to know yourself better. These are the things that are going to create change in the world. So the last bit of crazy news I have for you has to do with Guantanamo and, of course, torture. Next Saturday, January 31st, is the Global Day of Action Against Torture here in this country. We are hoping that more people will speak up, will come out, will organize, will rally, will wear orange jumpsuits, maybe volunteer to be a part of Uncle Sam's torture challenge, ice bucket challenge, and really get the world and the United States and other countries that support and militarily support and participate in the torture of human beings in 2015 and beyond to think about what is going on. We need people to challenge the war narrative, to stop thinking that torture is necessary, that war is necessary, and that the other side, the other people in the world just want to kill us. Things are more complex than that, but they're also so simple. There are people manipulating the situation. There are people coming in and trying to turn us against each other, because a humanity united is going to do amazing things. But for some reason, there is a tiny piece of us, there is a tiny minority piece of us that is sick and that is twisted and that we need to heal, and we can all play a role in that by helping ourselves so that we can get past this, we can spread awareness, we can heal ourselves in the meantime as we work to changing and fixing the whole. A detainee being held in Guantanamo Bay military prison has finally been allowed to release a book that he wrote called Guantanamo Diary, which details his experience being subjected to rendition, torture, and interrogation. Mohammed Ould Slahi was arrested shortly after 9/11 and subject to rendition, which of course is the practice of being kidnapped from one place in the country and taken to any other random place that they want to take you to torture you. He went to prison in Jordan, Afghanistan, and eventually Guantanamo Bay. He's been cleared of any wrongdoing and ordered to be released since 2012, 5 years now. 2010. The American government has fought for 7 years to suppress the release of the diary before a classified redacted version was released. So now what's out is a classified redacted version, but a link in this story that I wrote for the Liberty Beat actually has the declassified version. Declassified complete version. Unclassified, So this guy's story, he looks like a regular guy. He wasn't involved in any of this bullshit, okay? He's a person with a job, an intelligent person who I'm sure expressed some distaste for the way the United States was treating those nations over there even before 9/11. But he was kidnapped from his land, taken from his family on suspicion of being a terrorist, and taken all kinds of places. And it's disturbing to read the things that he said they did to him. And people ask why I would be willing to be waterboarded, why I would be willing to be tortured on this global day of action. And it's because when I think of solutions and I think of ways I can make this better, I honestly don't necessarily have the answer for this case. I can't tear apart Guantanamo, but I want to do something. I want to do something to stand in solidarity with all these individuals who have gone through these horrible things, and to show people, to confront people, because I really believe the people who say that they support torture and they think that torture helps, they're either military men and women who've been blinded to accept those things, or those who've never had to confront the reality of them. And I know that there are those who will point at 9/11 and they'll point at these various quote-unquote terrorist attacks and say, that is why I support torture. 3,000 dead people, that is why I support torture. But that is not what we need to stand for. We don't need to allow that to happen because those things are based on lies. This is why it's important to investigate those topics. This is why it's important to have a fuller understanding of the picture. Because as I've said, it's not so simple, but it is simple. It's complex and it's simple. There's, a small piece of us that is trying to infect the rest, and we need to help heal that. We need to get past that. We need to confront ourselves with the reality that is happening around us and confront the taxpayer with the fact that they are funding this. Please, if you know anyone interested, wherever you're at, organize a rally, a protest, even if it's just you. I've had people say, I live in a small town, nobody will know. We'll know. We'll stand with you. Go out there, spread awareness, talk to people, wear orange jumpsuits, hold documentary screenings, do whatever you do, just spread the word, please, on January 31st. Last story, and then I'm out of here. The Solutions Institute, of which I am on the board of advisors, presents ActCon, an online activist training conference on February 7th. This is Saturday, February 7th, from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern. There's, I think you can buy tickets $5 or something like that. You can buy them online, but it's an online conference. There's going to be John B. Wells, who's the former host of Coast to Coast AM, discussing what it takes to make a good radio show host and guest. I will be discussing how the Houston Freethinkers and other activists in Houston successfully kicked the TSA off the Houston Metro. And we will also be hearing from Daniel Johnson, who is the founder of People Against the NDA, and he's the president and creator of the Solutions Institute itself, on how to be a better public speaker. We're going to hear from other activists, including Anthony Antonello, Will Brown, Jason Casello, Daphne Lee, Steven Sarich, Isa Hodge, and more awesome people discussing how to take your activism to the next level, how to get involved in your community, and things like that. So check that out if you can. I think it's, like I said, $5 or $10, something like that. And even if you can't do that, please do check out the Solutions Institute website. Go find them on Facebook and then go to their website. They're doing a lot of good things. There's some really practical, awesome articles on there that discuss how to how to not have fear with the police is one I wrote. 10 steps to taking back your communities, how to fight against the NDA, various things like that. Very important practical ways to get involved in your community, and that's what many people have been looking for quite some time. So thank you to the Solutions Institute and to Dan Johnson. I'm thankful and happy to be a part of that. Please check out that conference. That's about all I got for today. I'm going to be recording an exclusive podcast next on the Barrett Brown hearing If you'd like to hear that, please go to Patreon, patreon.com/Derrick Broze, and you will see all my work there, and you can sign up for as little as $1 a month, and you'll get access to that. Thank you guys for listening. Please do check out theconsciousresistance.com for more awesome work from our team. If you want to keep up with my news, you can go to derrickbroze.contently.com. That's where all my articles are at. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon. Remember, if you can hear this, you are the resistance. Peace.